let's start with that point because the general reaction, Adolescence has been out for a while now.
Yeah.
The general reaction I have when I talk to people about it is it's riled people up almost into like a frenzy. I guess it started conversations, which is why we're talking to you today, Michelle. But a lot of people seem to be very freaked out by the realness of it. I think being shot in one shot, it felt real.
You felt like you're in the room.
It felt like you were in the middle of the most stressful few weeks of your entire life. But everyone seemed to be on edge. So what were your thoughts, being an expert in tweens and teens? What's your thoughts on the show?
I think it tapped into every parent's worst nightmare, didn't it? It was like, could this happen in my home? Is this possibly happening in my home? It really hit a nerve. And I think because it did such a good job at looking at it from so many different lenses, you saw it through a woman's perspective, through the dad's perspective, had multiple generations, then you saw it through the school's perspective. It almost captured everybody within it. And because it was done in one take as well, I felt like you're really journeying with the family and with the whole experience. So it just had tick, 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 it just sucked us all into this story. And then once you start talking, you really start hearing other people's perspectives. And I say well done, and what an incredible sort of journey it's taken us on. But what I did find, especially with the emails that I was receiving from families, and I received hundreds.
What sort of emails? What were they saying?
Oh, look, some of them were actually too graphic, and I wouldn't want to trigger people anymore. But I think particularly from parents of boys who felt like their boys had equally experienced abuse, that they didn't feel like that they could even share on social media because, it wouldn't be heard or understood, or they couldn't reach out for the help that they were needing. And it was really, really hard for me to read, and also I was digesting it from all different perspectives. And you could just see how many perspectives there were when people were watching this. And it re-emphasized to me that when it comes to respect, it's not a gender issue. This is about us as men, as women, as families. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's about all of us showing up with equal respect for each other. And it just kept reinforcing that for me. So I wrote a blog, and it was really about talking parents off the ledge and saying, well, this is a movie, this is fictional. It's just plausible, but I have worked with families for 30 years, and I know that the risk factors for something like this happen when there's a conglomeration of risk factors that build up over time. And there are normally things like an exposure to domestic violence over time, abuse and neglect by caregivers, a history of crime and violence by kids, mental health challenges. They're often using drugs and alcohol themselves as kids. So parents who are loving and connected with their kids and have got sort of like kids who are in a safe, good, healthy place were getting into a frenzy. And I really wanted to reassure them that, hey, just take a breath.
And I think that's what we kind of got the most out of reading your blog post, Michelle, was we felt the same. We saw the same thing online and in our circles of people getting frantic and getting afraid.
And we saw the show.
Yeah.
And in the show, the family is depicted as a loving family with no issues, and they're all getting along. And there's no abuse in the family. So then I think so many people were looking at it going, that's kind of like our family.
Yeah.
And I can't believe something like this can happen. And then we read your blog.
And then I think because when we read your blog, you just have this beautiful picture of going, hey, yes, these things happen, but you don't need to be afraid. Like your focus should be on being on, fostering those connections. And I think that's what we'd love you to maybe just to speak into for 2 seconds is you talk about the importance of connections, for parents and teachers and sports coaches and how much of an influence they have on children's lives. Is there, a practical sort of thought that you have that parents could take away when it comes to strengthening connection with our kids and our teens, even though, maybe they're a bit stuck on their phones? Is there something that you would go, this is a great thing to take away?
Definitely. One thing I want to say is kids don't just watch an Andrew Tate video and then go out and stab a girl. Like, really big gap between
Yeah.
those two things.
Yeah.
And my own 26-year-old son looked at me and he said, I think this whole manosphere is getting way too much credit. And what he was actually saying to me is that the sports coaches, the youth leaders, us as parents had way more of an impact in his life than the phone in his hand. And yes, technology is powerful, but parents, we are pushing back and we are big and powerful and strong in our kids' lives. And I don't want us to be intimidated by their phones and intimidated by technology, in the sense that I don't want us to minimize our power in our kids' lives. That research is still very clear. We are the most powerful influence in our kids' lives. So we are their primary attachment figure. It's not TikTok, it's not YouTube. But when parents ask me, when is technology too much? I'm just really simple. When it's coming between you and your kids, when it's coming between you and your conversation with your kids and your time with your kids and, maybe meal time and family time, it's too much. So step up and be the adult and get between it and your child and put in the restrictions that you need to. And parents sometimes say to me, oh, but that's so hard. And I'm like, yeah, but, so are a lot of things when it comes to parenting. And if we think about our grandparents, they moved countries. They were in war and in poverty. And what did they have to do to look after their kids and to save their hereditary line? They risked it all to look after us. And I'm a beneficiary of that as an immigrant's child. Our issue just happens to be technology. So I say to parents, put in the boundaries that you need to, that's just one thing. And we can talk about maybe being a role model for boys if you want to go into that area. Or if
Please do.
Yeah, please do.
Please do, because that's something I'm interested in, because when I was watching it as a guy, I was watching it with my wife, and I found the person that I empathized with the most as the show went on was the dad, because I just felt a little bit lost and powerless, and being like my personality, I would blame myself like the dad did in the show. And obviously in the show they're depicted as a happy family, but yeah, just speaking to the teenage boys at the moment, because I grew up without social media. So if I had issues at school or bullying, they didn't follow me home. So I only know what it's like from my perspective. Can you just talk into that?
Yeah, Rob, that is so interesting that you said that, because my youngest boy, he's 23, he turned it off because he felt so bad for Jamie's dad. He couldn't cope with how the dad must be feeling having a son that did that.
It was exactly the same as me. I turned it off 3/4 of the way through episode 4 when, if you've not watched the show, the dad's got like a painting business and he goes to the hardware store, and even there's a scene where there's a young guy who sympathizes with his son and why his son would do something like that, and the dad just sees red and just loses his mind. And that's when I switched it off, because like that feels so real to me. It feels like a reaction that I would have.
And there's been so much talk about how, Jamie's dad had anger issues and blah, blah, blah. But when I watched it, I literally saw a dad who was doing his best. And when you look at the research, when kids see us take ownership and do our best and have courage and keep working on our issues, that really has an impact on our kids. That's often enough. But when our boys are looking to self-improve, that's the time where we as adults around our kids need to take note. And I think particularly in boys' life, this is where technology in the manosphere tends to come in and sort of, entice them a little bit. And the beauty industry does exactly the same thing for our girls. But, with our boys, they often look in the mirror and they say, hey, I want more muscles, or I want to look more attractive. And, it starts by, looking at, how am I going to get fit? And then, these workout protein things that they start getting on. And I've got 2 boys. I've seen it all. But then it starts getting into, health podcasts, and it starts getting into, having a healthy mind. And all of a sudden they can be following the the advice of all sorts of people that, may or may not line up with our family values or may not be healthy for them. So it's that moment where our boys want to self-improve. And that in itself, the motivation of that is something that we don't want to shut down or shame. So where their search for that might sometimes be a bit misguided, we've got to be very careful about not making them feel ashamed for wanting to grow up as a man.
Yeah.
And that's where we get beside them and say the intent and the desire is something that we really want to back and sort of get a part of that, like be a part of that and get really practical with that and help them. Go to the gym with them, help them reach their goals, help them get onto their finances, be interested in the girl that they're interested in, whatever it takes, man, get next to them.
I love that. And I think that's what it's all about, right? Even in your blog. And we'll make sure we put it up on our socials so people can go have a read. You have a list of some awesome ways to be involved in your child's life. And we'll make sure that everyone can go head to the socials and have a look through that. But I suppose for parents, as we wrap up, they've heard this conversation, they've seen the show, maybe they've been a bit nervous. And look, maybe it's not on the same level as the film, right? They're not concerned that that's going to happen, but they are concerned that their child is struggling or maybe just, you're not sure where your child is at. Are there any signs that a parent can be looking for in their child that might mean it's time to step in and to be a bit more of that connection person?
Yeah, parents know their kids, and when their kids are not right or there's sudden changes in behaviour, I always say to parents, don't ever feel like you are overstepping your mark by having really upfront, honest conversations or even taking a phone for a period of time because you're worried about your kid's safety. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know where we've ever got the impression that we have to obligate our kids with the World Wide Web in a period of our kids' lives where it might be doing them damage. So I say to parents, be the parent, and our kids actually really understand that that's our job.
That's beautiful.
Michelle, you've got an untold amount of resources. If anyone wants to learn more from you, where can they go?
Just michellemitchell.org, and that's where I am, and I'm on socials.
Perfect. Thank you so much for speaking with us. We feel lighter knowing that there is so much we can do and that there is so much joy to be found and solutions to be found. So thank you for speaking into our lives. Thank you for helping us. And we're very grateful for all your wisdom.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle.
My pleasure, guys. We really have got this. It's going to be okay.